Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about SurrealEstate Season 3, Episode 5. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So the overarching main plot of this episode revolves around Paul and Jan, a couple. We don't know where they are. I guess there might be in the separation, borderlining divorce process, because they're like cleaning up a place, because it's like we're not even letting our neighbors know, our friends know that we're not together, and so it's interesting because both of them have a similar perspective on basically. Jen, it's like we used to be Paul and Jen, like we used to be one entity, and now when it's just one of us, just me by myself, it feels extra cold and lonely. And she feels like when she broke the news to Paul, he didn't do much, he just kind of accepted it, he didn't fight for them, and she's just like, yeah, I want to feel like I was wanted. And it's interesting because Paul's perspective on it feels like, I think it's this interesting thing where it's like you kind of get blindsided by something and you're just kind of like, okay, you don't really ask too many questions. Which I've been in that situation where like a breakup happens and you're just kind of like, okay, not because you don't care, not that you don't want things to work out. It's just a situation of I want to be respectful for your choices. And, I've had exes explain like the reasons why we broke up, and I accepted it. I didn't put up too much fight, but it's still that thing of like, it still stung, it still hurt, and I wanted us to still work it out. But I just kind of thought, like, especially because I was younger, inexperienced, I was just kind of like, oh, I thought this is just, I always tend to lean more to what my significant other would want in that situation, than rather what I would 100% want. I think that's sometimes my issue, and at least that has been my issue in past relationships, where I feel like sometimes, once again, I'm a Paul, where I feel like I can see where Jan is coming from, where I feel like I'm Paul, not fighting for the relationship. But in his mind, it's probably a thing of, I don't know that I'm supposed to be. I'm just trying to respect your wishes, and maybe I'm like giving enough time. Maybe I could talk, because it's like, first I'm blindsided by like, because he's even like, where is this coming from? We just kind of drifted apart. They never really got into why they actually split, because at the beginning, like, Paul's like, oh, like, and he's trying to go down memory lane, and Jan kind of like deads that immediately. It's like, you work inside, I work outside. It's probably better for both of us like that. He's like, okay, cool. And repeating, it's like, wait, you don't even want to be in the same house as me or what? So, but anyway, Jan's working on her garden, and she meets Blake. Blake, who we immediately saw at the beginning of the episode, the cold open, slice open his finger and bleed, and a flower sprouts up. And so you can tell he's like trying to gain Jan's attention by like being this guy. Like, she's at her lowest with this whole, heartbroken over the whole situation with her relationship. And here's this guy coming in, saying all the right things, doing all the right things, kind of, drawing her in, and this flower seems to kind of like possess her. And I was wondering if we were going to have that issue with Susan, but it turns out Susan didn't smell the flower, because she's like, yeah, I've got allergies, it could be a whole thing. So that kind of prevented that from turning into a bigger issue. But the more Blake comes around, the more he's seducing her and trapping her, almost like a siren-esque thing, but in the form of, this hypnotic seduction from the flowers, bringing her out to the woods. And no wonder you had that desperate look on his face, as we find out later on. We'll get to it later, but why he was so desperate, because he was playing it slow. You got to slowly bridge it in, because there's more and more flowers, and make her obsessed with it. So you're drawing her in slowly but surely, because you're not trying to scare her away. You're trying to seduce her and make the seduction, the control and everything. It has to really stick in the brain. And so she's getting to the point she's camping outside, blocking out everything, kind of telling Paul like, oh, I'm trying to remember why I fell in love with you at all at one point in time, which was, God, that was a gut punch and heart punch and just all the punches. It's like twisting that knife, and you're like, oh, that sucks, because obviously she didn't mean it. So it's just playing off like how she's feeling right now. But yeah, we find out that this particular flower, what is it, sheep eater, which super effed up name, but basically it draws sheep in, and when they eat it, they get tangled up in its thorns and end up starving to death. And it's like, this all stems from a folklore about a farmer doing it, but then like the flower devoured this farmer, got smarter and stronger, and basically it kind of almost works like Jeepers Creepers, like the whole thing of, oh, every 23 years for 23 days it gets to eat. This is for 1 week, and it's like in a period of time of 1 week, but one victim every 6 years, it sustains itself. And that's where the desperation comes into. Once again, it has to slow play things, but it has 1 week every 6 years to find its meal and eat, and then it goes back into a dormant state. So that's why Blake was so desperate. Because at first I was so curious, like, we didn't get a full look at, because we saw him eat the flower, lay down on the ground, and then kind of fuse back with the ground. He seems kind of like this. The fact is, like, we see a little bit of his transformed state where his face looked all bark-ish, looked a little rockish. He looked a little Korgish, if you know, from the MCU, specifically like the Thor movies 3 and 4. But it was also, was Korg in any of the others? I don't think he was. Oh yes, he was in Endgame. I don't think he was in Infinity War. He was definitely in Endgame though. But either way, so it kind of reminded me of that. And luckily, Paul was concerned. Also, luckily, so was Susan, because she was like, oh, this flower kind of giving me a weird vibe. And so she had August and Tag look into it, and they found out all this stuff. Paul was kind of concerned about Jan, so that also adds more to it. So ultimately, they all end up tracking her down. She was basically buried alive, but they got to her in time. But before, like, Home Dude can grab her, like, they got her away. Because, like I said, it was down to the last minute. And basically, his hunt, like, luckily because he hit the week mark, basically he died because he didn't get a victim in that week mark. So either what he ends up is kind of his dormant state because he exactly hit that week mark, or it's a thing of because he was trying so hard to drag, like, it probably takes a little more depending on the victim, but as long as he's able to eat it all in that week period, he's good. But maybe it's like, yeah, I kind of starved to death because I didn't get to you in time, and there's a time limit, and I didn't sustain myself, and now, like, it's almost like oh god, I guess it's almost like the Mother Gothel of it all, because, like, if she didn't, like, feed off of, like, Rapunzel, like, she started turning old. It's like time kind of started catching up with her. I think it's kind of a similar thing to that, where it's like, oh, the timer started, time really started catching up to you, and now all that's left is a skeleton. It's like, oh, but what if he comes back? And Susan's like, I won't worry about that. Immediately knocks up the fire. I was like, yeah, haven't seen Susan really, she's used the telekinesis, but she hasn't used the pyrokinesis at all this season. But it's like, no, there we go. I was like wondering if that'd be an issue. So even if he wasn't dead, even if that was him in like a hibernative state. I don't know if that's, I don't even know if hibernative would be a word, but him in hibernation is what I'm trying to say. Like, I was mixing my words and just mixing them all up. But being in that state, like, maybe that's what that looks like. But, he might have already been dead. But whatever, Susan made sure to kind of tie that with a bow. So, but luckily at the end of it all, like, it kind of rekindled things between Jan and Paul, which is kind of nice. So, hey, there's a silver lining to this. This brought them closer. They're definitely going to leave here. They're going to start fresh, and I think it's like, it's a little bit of what both of them needed. I mean, it's added. It takes a traumatic situation like this to bring them back together, but it also shows like, oh, like, Paul still cared, and this was his way of fighting for you. There's also like Paul realizing, okay, Jen, there's still something there that maybe I need to do better about, meeting your needs in this room. So it just all works out. But this all heavily influences everything with Luke as well, because he's trying to figure out the him and Megan of it all. Even though like Susan's like, oh, like Sharon, like, was it Sharon or I think it was Shannon. It's like, why don't you reach out to her? It's like, no, I'm good. It's fine. But it's like, no, I don't want you wasting your time hoping for something that will never be. But he's like, no. Me and Megan, we're good. We're just friends. And you can tell it's like, it's that one, the one that got away type of situation. Which, hey, I totally understand the Luke and Megan involved, because I mean, I think we've all been in that situation. The one that got away, and also like trying to be friends with your exes. I've been down that road quite a few times. It's not panned out, especially because I was in a very similar situation to Luke, especially when I was younger, where I had a significant other where I stayed friends with her, even though I still was in love with her. Like, I didn't give myself time to move on, and Luke didn't either, because like Megan continued to be that consistency in his life, even in obviously the budding romance in season 1. Season 2, there were little steps in that direction, but like Luke wasn't fully committing to it for various reasons, because I think maybe he was scared too with everything going on in his life, especially at a time when he's trying to figure out what he wants in life. And he wants Megan, but she's already with someone else, and it's like, what do I do? So when he's sitting with her and they're kind of joking a little bit until she references Hunter, and he's just like, she's like, what's wrong? He's like, actually, this is what's wrong. Like, the fact of the matter is, it's like, what we once had. She's like, we had? He was like, love. She's like, love? No, wait, love? And he was like, yeah. She was like, oh, you never told me that. She's like, yeah, it might have been love once, but that was a long time ago. Meaning, like, season 1, there was those sparks flying. Season 2, that kind of dwindled away. But also, to be fair, is like, I'm also forgetting there's a 3-year time skip in between season 2 and 3, so that adds more to it. Of like, I think it was more like it bubbled up more in season 2 as well. It's been a while since I've seen season 2, so it might be misremembering. It was definitely the most there in season 1. I think it was there in season 2, but he didn't jump on it like he was supposed to. Once again, it's just Luke was figuring himself out last season. It's that thing of, once again, you think you're doing what's best for the other person, because he's like, I want you to go off, be a doctor, like, chase your dreams. I don't think it's almost like I don't know if I'm really worth you missing out on these opportunities. But it's like, sometimes, like, people just want you to know. I mean, just like the Jan of it all, sometimes I just want to know that you're fighting for me. And even Megan throws that in his face of like, you didn't say, like, when I left, you didn't say anything. You didn't say anything about love. You didn't even say goodbye to me. You just sent me on my way. And also, you didn't even fight for us. And Luke could. He's like, right, I did. He couldn't even retort, is what I was about to say. He's like, yeah, you're right, I didn't. And that was that situation of, where do we go from here? And it's like, what are we if we're not friends? And Luke doesn't know what to say. And Megan's like, well, call me when you figure it out. It's a tough situation. Now, like, I don't think Megan's at fault here. I think it is kind of on Luke for not being upfront about how he feels. It was there. Megan was feeling the vibes too, but I think Luke was so scared. I think maybe it also dealt with probably abandonment issues and his circumstances being what they are, his powers and stuff, like not really willing to necessarily like get close to someone that fear. And just, so he let a lot of like life pass him by. So interesting too, considering like the past is rearing its ugly head with like the thing inside of Tyler. So I don't know. It's kind of sad that things played out that way. And obviously it was like a very public thing, because they started getting louder and louder, and people at the place start turning around. And Luke was like, no, I'll go and you stay. She's like, no, you stay. This is more your place than it is mine. So it's like, oh, it's a rough situation. You're just kind of sad that it worked out like that. But it's like, sometimes it is a thing of like, given enough time, maybe Luke, he can take a step back away from this, because once again, it's like you're trying to be friends with someone you're still in love with. And sometimes maybe you can work that out, and over time your feelings dwindle. Obviously for Luke, they never went away in this time frame. So it's like, so you need time away to like really mend your broken heart, and like, oh, that, solidify in your head that can never be. And don't, like Susan said, don't wait around for something that never can be. He wasn't, but subconsciously he was. So it's like, go off, maybe like, figure things out on your end, because he's figuring out like, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? He's figuring that stuff out, plus figuring things out on a romantic front, like what that's going to look like. Maybe you can revisit you and Megan, like once you are in a different position, a different place, maybe you can be perfectly fine with you and Megan being friends. But you got to give yourself time, and he hasn't given himself time. Once again, I've been through that experience. It was one of the on the romantic front, it was a lesson I did not learn until my early 20s. Because I got that advice from someone else, and they were like, oh, you didn't give that person to give themselves time to heal. And I was like, wait, that struck a chord with me. I was like, oh yeah, I never did. I went straight from, oh, we're in a relationship, to just being friends. Well, we were friends first, or friendly, then we went into dating, and then like immediately after breaking up, we stayed friends for a while. And that was not the best decision. And that kind of like, that led to a whole issue later on, which just kind of destroyed that friendship. So there's nothing there between us now, sadly. Try mend fencing, but so many years have passed, and just so much reevaluation and many existential crises later, try to mend fences, but it's like, it's too late. I can't do anything about it. I can't make up for like, I was so in love with you at the time, and I just didn't process it all right, didn't say what was really on my mind, what was really on my heart, because I was too scared. Once again, I'm bringing a lot of my own personal past into it, but like, I'm just saying, like, I have an emotional connection with that, because I'm like, oh yeah, I've been through that, so that's where things stand with Luke. We got the August of it all, where it's like, hey, the electricity bill's going super up because you're a tech. He's like, oh, it couldn't go up that much. Oh, geez, that's That's substantial. It's like, well, why don't you unplug some of the stuff? It's like, well, it isn't a thing of we can turn it on and turn it off when we need to. It kind of needs to stay on. But it's like, obviously the upgrades are beneficial, but it's like, how do we kind of weigh this out going forward? Especially because when Luke is trying to figure stuff out, August is too, where like everything didn't work out at the company, and now here you are back with Rome and Ireland. But the problem is you're kind of feeling like, am I where I need to be? Because he was making the whole parallel to the plant where it's like the new flowers kind of grow in and kind of overtake the old growth, where it's like something new has to come in. Because even like Tag already covers like the more, like he covers the fill role, but he also kind of fills in the August role to some extent. So it's like a thing of, I'm kind of feeling a little obsolete and kind of wondering, is this kind of where I'm supposed to be? He's also still bringing up the whole that Tyler guy, kind of not vibing with him, kind of rubs me the wrong way. He has all the right to, especially with Luke looking at like that Elvis stuffed animal not knowing what it is, even though on some level he's having a reaction to it, which I don't know if like Tyler also, the thing inside of Tyler specifically left that to him as he brought up last episode as an inside joke, but also like the more time Luke's around it, more of it's like messing with his spider sense and kind of like hypnotizing, and kind of similar to this episode. Maybe like the more he's around the stuffed animal, the more it's drawing him in because of some residual energy of what's left in that thing, and it's going to start lowering his defenses enough for Tyler to swoop in and like possess his body like he's aiming for. So there's that. On the other side of this episode is Lomax, kind of similar to Luke. She's trying to figure things out because her parents want her to take over the family business, because it's like, well, especially this episode, because she had to come in to help her dad, because it's like, oh, can't do the job like he used to because he's getting older. And they bring that up to Lomax of like, oh man, how proud of her they are. And it's like, oh, okay, go down there, do the thing. It's like, no one can do it like you, because they're like, we rather leave we can't leave this in like any of your siblings. It has to be you because you're very good at, like, no one comes to the job like you do. And so even that moment when she's talking to the dead body, at first I was like, is this in her head? I was like, that can't be really happening, because I'm like, the supernatural stuff wouldn't like really directly happen to Lomax like that. But it's like, no, it's her subconscious manifesting over the dead body. To be fair, talking to the dead has always kind of been her way to kind of compartmentalize and deal with like kind of left brain, right brain of it all, of like, contextualizing and dealing with everything. So even weighing the pros and cons to, taking over the family business because her mom and dad want her to, even though she's like, no, I got this job, I got this career. But it's like, real estate, is that really what you want to go down? It's like, fine, because they're like, you shine so brightly when you're doing, like, no one can deal with a corpse, on the funeral home level side of things like you have a special talent for it. So she starts weighing the pros and the cons, because it's like, it makes her happy, but also, do you want to do a job that mom and dad might eventually start micromanaging you over? You decided that you wanted to walk away from this, but then it's like, yeah, but maybe walking away from this give you it's like, distance makes the heart grow fonder type of thing. So like, the more I've moved away from it, maybe the more I miss it. But she's kind of torn between, yes, I do love this job, but I also love what I do at Roman and Ireland. And also like, it's also like, I want to help make my parents happy because they want to keep this as a family business, and they don't want some other funeral home conglomerate to gobble it up and kind of remove some of that personal mom and pop, aspect of this funeral home. Which is so interesting because like, I believe someone in my family, I think someone in my home, near my hometown, there was a funeral home. I believe I was related to the people who run that funeral home. I actually don't know who runs that now, because that person who was running it is passed away, and I don't know if like her family runs that or not. But I want to say like we were cousins, if I remember correctly. I think we were related. So obviously I've never delved into like the funeral home business, but I do have a familial connection to it, even though I've never like directly interacted with it, other than going there when family members have died. But nevertheless, so yeah, it was just an interesting aspect of Lomax's story in this regard. And ultimately her telling her parents, like, I don't want to do it. I like what I do at Roman and Ireland because it's a challenge. Or she's like, yeah, I'm actually more of a people person now, and I actually talk to people, not the dead ones, but the live ones. And she even says like, yeah, I even have a best friend. And they're like, oh God, please tell us not Rita. And she's like, oh God, no. I was like, oh, that's sweet that you and Susan are besties now. That's so sweet. Knowing like, oh, I mean, obviously she is the one. Lomax and Susan are working on that house together, and especially the conversations they have. Like Susan's opening up to her, like in a way she's not having those she's having a little bit of those conversations with Luke, but like she's really having someone she can open up to and talk to about that stuff, and they can have those frank and open conversations. I think it's kind of dope. But speaking of Rita, she's kind of, I love her reappearance in this episode. First and foremost, her first scene being like so snide and so like in Luke's face and just talking about, oh, I'm so glad. Like, I'm basically just shitting on him as much as she can. And it's like, oh, like your business sucks. And this is my listing, yada, yada, yada. Then running into Lomax because Lomax runs into her at the funeral home, and it's like, oh, you were friends with Jessica? It's like, yeah, oh my god, Jessica was great. Her name was Bernice. It's like, oh, poor Jessica here. Bernice, whatever. But yeah, basically she's taking advantage of like the funeral home situation to like jump on listings and take advantage of it. It's like, that is super slimy. You are taking advantage of people rather than trying to help people, like let them come to you when they're at a vulnerable state. It's like when they figure stuff out and they want to come to you, sure, but you're trying to come to them with that in their most vulnerable state and taking advantage of them. Very shitty on your part. I'd almost wondered, and on some level, I was wondering if Lomax was going to take some of that. She was like, impressive, which is, hey, it's impressive. You suck, but that's still impressive, Rita. But I thought it was going to be a thing of maybe she's going to take something from this and implement it as part of the Roman Island business. I didn't know like what she was going to like do about that. We still don't fully know what her parents are going to do. I guess they are just going to sell it, sadly, or maybe find someone else to try and keep it in the family, even though like Lomax's siblings got nothing on this. If it's not Lomax, it's going to be, but it's Lomax or bust type of situation. So who knows what's going to be waiting for the business afterwards. So. But at the end of the day, like, her parents aren't disappointed. They're like, well, I'm proud of you. And it's like, well, and her dad's like, well, my daughter, our Lomax is, a professional real estate agent. And it's like, yes, no, she's not our baby. She's not a baby. She's a fully, great real estate woman. So it's like, they're very proud of her no matter what she did. She had the pressures of not wanting to disappoint her family. Plus, it's also what she loved, the whole funeral home business. But they're also proud of her. Like, yeah, you made this decision. You're making a life for yourself. You're making a career for yourself. As long as you're happy and you feel good and comfortable with what you do, we don't want to stand in the way of that. So I just thought that was kind of beautifully done and nice. So that's where things kind of stand at the end of the episode. I'm curious to see ultimately where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.